Right. So back to the participants at the round table and their examples. Were there any examples around real world evidence or statements around the real world data that stood out for you?
Maybe I can start off. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised by how far upstream real world data and real world evidence is being used. You know, we've seen it slowly creeping from the post-approval space, which is the primary and has been the primary use case, to some, you know, informing clinical trials, clinical trial optimization, and we heard a lot about that. But you know, one or two of the participants mentioned all the way through pre-discovery, even defining a market, target identification, and also in the discovery space itself. So to me, that was encouraging, but something that I wasn't aware of beforehand.
I thought there was a portion where we were discussing the risk-benefit framework and the application of real-world evidence in the context of a risk-benefit framework where you were potentially willing to tolerate a little bit more uncertainty about the veracity of the data because of you know, the compelling need. And I think that you know, it's something that we all know and we all kind of incorporate into how we apply these things, and certainly the FDA does. But the discussion was so explicit around that I think it kind of opens up the door, if you will, or the idea of creating a more explicit framework where you sort of fit in different kinds of data, the data hierarchy in a more explicit consideration of the risk benefit of the underlying question that you're trying to answer. I thought that was pretty interesting because it sort of created the idea of a whole regulatory framework around that would be, you know, would be objective, and I think could potentially lead to, you know, sort of accelerate adoption, if you will, if people kind of knew where was an appropriate setting from a risk benefit standpoint to accept a data construct that may not have the same you know, rigor as a traditional randomized trial, but the public health need is compelling in that setting.
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott, because especially in rare diseases, which the group came back to several times, as well as in a number of oncology indications, that risk benefit being different and more regulatory clearance and guidance there could be really a beneficial next step as we look forward. So I think that's an important next step potentially for this discussion.